Hey, what's going on YouTube, and welcome to this video on the Freelab beta for GNS3. Now, just to warn you, I've been coming down with a cold, so if all of a sudden it sounds like I'm in a headlock or something and lose my voice, that's why. It's been on and off all day, so I apologize in advance if that happens. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with what the Freelab beta is on the technical and how-to videos that I make, whether it's for routing, switching, voice, whatever the case may be. In the past, I've always been asked the same questions as far as, can I provide the software? Because they don't have their own means of getting it, like with the call manager stuff, and I can't give that out because it's illegal. And same with when you're dealing with GNS3, if you don't have a way to get your own images, that's things that I can't provide. So going forward with my technical videos, if you have your own lab and want to set it up and follow along, or whatever the case may be, it's still formatted so you can still do that. But for those of you that don't have your own lab or can't do everything that you want because either you don't have the images, hardware, whatever the case may be, I wanted to at least be able to allow you to do the exact same thing that I'm doing. And all the videos that I'm doing 2017 and beyond are going to be in an environment that you can use the exact same environment. Now, granted, there's no SLAs or anything. It's just my home DSL line, and there's power outages or whatever. But on this voiptek.info website, this is basically a supplement to my channel, where if there are known outages or whatever, I'll keep it updated here. So there's the two. Here's the GNS3 and the CUCM, and it's closer to collaboration now with all the stuff we've been adding. But again, this is just the first iteration, and if you haven't used the Cisco AnyConnect, there's an embedded video here that will show you how to get that set up. And then these are the login instructions once you have it. And also the username and password will be here at all times. So in this case, since I already have Cisco AnyConnect installed, I'll just go ahead and load this up. And just copy the password here. And so when you log in, someone just sent me an email asking if I can afford to lose $3.8 million. I don't think I've even made that even close to that in my lifetime. I think they emailed the wrong person. So anyway, we go to freelab.voiptek.info, connect anyway, and username free user, and we'll paste in the password here. I think I have a leading space on there. Didn't copy it right. And connect anyway. Alright, so now that we're connected, and again, if you haven't seen this before, the way that it's set up, if you go to the route details, it's basically a split tunnel. So anything in the 192.168.200, 201, and 202 are what gives you access. 201 is the data devices like GNS3 here, and 202 are the collaboration voice devices, and the 200 is what from the pool of IPs that you get when you connect to the VPN. Anything else uses your regular internet connection. So the point being is, if your internal network is one of these, it could cause some problems. So as long as your internal network's not one of these, everything should work just fine. And so now if you click on here, this will take you to the GNS page, and this is running GNS 152. And just for convenience, I put a Dropbox download link to the all-in-one installer. You can also go to GNS3 to download it. If you go to gns3.com, you can do the free download. Let's see, click on login, and then you can choose whichever platform, or you can go over here, and like I say, it takes you to Dropbox link, and you can just click on download, and you say no thanks and continue, and then that'll download to your PC. And then under status here has all once you start a project, it'll show what's running and how many VMs are used. It doesn't necessarily mean they're turned on, but if somebody is logged into a project and using it, it'll show one client connected and how many VMs is in their project. But now that we've downloaded GNS3 all-in-one installer, all you need is the GNS3 application. Now, if you don't have Wireshark and WinPCAP, you probably want to do that too, because part of troubleshooting in Wireshark is setting up, or troubleshooting GNS3 is setting up Wireshark. So if you don't have that already, you can install that. But in this case, I'm going to say yes here. And let's go through the wizard. So here, I already have WinPCAP installed, so I'm going to uncheck that. I already have Wireshark installed. But none of these you actually need. So you can remove the SolarWinds, Dynips, QEMU, remove all this stuff. You can even remove Super Putty type VNC, because GNS3 is for your local machine is all you need. And so if you do have your own GNS3 server and images and you want to run it locally in addition to this, then you can turn those things on. But in this case, we're going to run everything 100% on the remote server. So, and I'm going to turn on or install Super Putty too, just for a terminal client, and choose next. Use the defaults there. We'll let this install. All right, now that the install is complete, we can hit next, and $200 value, we'll say no. Choose next, and we can go ahead and let it start GNS3. So we'll hit finish here. And also, so you don't need that page. One other thing I was going to mention too is on here, I have all the images that are currently available. So if I add some new ones, they'll be listed here, and then you can manually add those, which is what we're going to do right now. So on the setup wizard, we can actually cancel that because we're not going to use it. So I'm going to choose cancel, and let me move this over here, make it a little bigger. And we're going to go to edit preferences. And first thing is go down to server, and we're actually going to disable the local server because we're not going to use it. GNS3 VM server should be unchecked. And then here under remote servers, this is where we're going to add what we had over here, this GNS3 freelab.local on port 3080. So here we're going to say add, and it's GNS3.freelab.local. And there's no authentication you have to enter, and you just hit OK. And once you have that in place, then we'll go down to Dynips and iOS routers. These are for all the hardware-based emulations. So we'll say new and choose the server type to run on the remote computer. And you can see it has the GNS3 Freelab local you put in there. So we'll choose next, and now you have the two images you can choose from. It's the 1524M and S series. So if I add the M series here, we can call this just copy this. And iOS 15.2.4 M, we'll say. Next, you can leave the default RAM, and then this is going to be for all the defaults. So when you just drag it off and in, what are the default interfaces do you want on there? And you can modify these once they're in your topology, but these are just setting the defaults. And then we'll want to find the idle PC time. So click on this link, and this is on the server side. So it's spinning it up on the server side to detect the values. And it says that it found a suitable value, so hit OK and then finish. And then if we want, we can add the new one, or the other one. So add new, and we'll add the S series. And this one is the iOS 15.2.4 S7. Next, give it a few extra interfaces, and next, find the idle PC. Alright, and again, it found a valid value, so hit OK and finish. So those are the two hardware-based emulations I have on here. And then for iOS under Unix, the main one for this would probably be the switch, but we'll go for the L2. So this is a layer 2 image, so that means you're going to be able to do your, it's technically a layer 3 switch image, but you can do like all your spanning tree, BTP, all the switch based stuff with this. So we can call this IOU switch 15.6, something like that, and finish. And then we can add the layer 3 router, IOU router, layer 3 router. That's kind of redundant, isn't it? iOS 15.6, it's 9S, but you get the idea. And finish. So now we have our switch, our multi-layer switch, and our Linux-based router. And now this one on the version 5 series, I haven't been able to get to, it powers on, but the console doesn't work. So I'm gonna have to look into that, and I'll update this. But assuming it was working, we could say like IOS XR, and worst case, I'll put version 1.4 because I know this works on version 1.4. And so we use the x86-64 and IOS XR. I have 532, 60, and 601. 601 uses the 64-bit, but like I say, I do have some issues with this, but I'll add it in there for now. So then, as you can see here, over here to the right under server summary, it shows, you know, green connected, how much CPU is being used, how much RAM there is. And I'm going to maximize this for now, and then I'll do some zoom in post editing. But we can save this project. We can call it Freelab example, for example. And now we can start adding our devices. And I haven't done any benchmarks to see which ones are the best for if you have a whole bunch that you want to put in, whether it's, you know, use all iOS or all IOUs. IOUs like boot instantly though. That's pretty cool. But I'll do some benchmark testing to max it out, try different scenarios. I've pretty much just done mixed environments right now, and the performance has been fine. So if you want to put one, you can just click and drag. If you want to put more than one, hold down Shift and put it in, and we can say add 9 more. So now we got 10 physical emulated routers. If we want to do the same for the IOU router, we'll put in, you know, 10 here. Now you can put as many or little. I mean, you can keep it very simple, or you can make it complex. You know, you can pretty much set it up however you want. For the layer 2 or 3 switches, we can put in, we'll say, put in 3 here. And usually what I'll do then is also rename these here. So we'll call this one like router 11, router 12, and so on. And I'll finish these up real quick. All right, so we have our routers set up here, and then we can connect these to the switches. And that's another thing. You can, when you set up the switch, one thing I forgot to mention, if you want to change your default, especially if you do a large topology, you may want to go to your switch here. You can see by default it has 4 interface Ethernet adapters for 16 interfaces. So you may want to change this to something like 10. So now you have at least 40 interfaces. So I'm going to finish connecting these here. Alright, so I have these all connected to a design you'll never see in real life. If you do, they should be fired. And we'll just rename these here to switch 1, switch 2, and switch 3. So again, we got the 7200 emulated routers here, the IOU Linux routers here, and our layer 3 switches. So at this point, we can power it on. So we'll turn it on here. It's going to say starting. And when you double click on these, this will bring up the console to the devices. So see, this is router 1, and then we'll go into router 20 over here. And see how fast, I mean, this all of these are up already, which is pretty crazy how fast these things boot, whereas the emulation ones take a little bit longer. But if we look at the interface, we'll say int eth00, and give it an IP address. We'll just say 10.0.0.20. So we went ahead and just gave that an IP, and we'll do the same up here. And you can see this one has fast Ethernet 0. So we'll call this one 10.0.0.1. All right. So now the thing is with all the IOU switches, by default they're set up as layer 3 interfaces. So when we go into these, you do show int status. Here's the default interfaces we used, and if so, for example, if you do show spanning tree, there's no spanning tree instance because none of them are switch ports. So usually what I'll do is just grab Notepad and do something like this. Say config t int range eth00 through 3, comma eth1 0 through 3, eth2 0 through 3, eth3 0 through 3, like that. And then say switch port. And if you want spanning tree port fast, and then write memory. So copy this, paste this in here, and do the same for these other switches. You want to make sure to do the right memory and then extract your, go over here and extract your configs to a directory on your local machine to make sure that they save. So now, for example, if we look at our switches here, we got 1, 1, and 3. You show spanning tree, you can see this one's the root bridge. You can see this one has a root port. So spanning tree is working. VTP is the default, just like a regular switch. So if you're learning, you're new to switching or doing CCNA or something, this is something you could practice those skills in. And let's see, show and status. All right, so we have trunk ports here. See how this side looks, because those are automatically negotiated. So let's see if we can ping from router 1 over to router 20. And we have a success there. And from router 20, we can ping there. And if you do, for example, like show ARP, so router 20 is this MAC address here. You could set up like multiple switches and redundant links, and then like go in and show MAC address table address, put in the MAC address, and the aging time is not the default 5 minutes, but all you have to do, you could just run a continuous ping or just issue another ping again. Oops. And now you can see it was learned on eth3.0, and if you turn on the interfaces, I mean, you'd have to move these so you can see it a little better, but you can see, 3.0 connects to switch 2, and basically, follow the path if you're learning layer 2 technologies. That times out really fast. So anyway, then, from switch 2, it's on 3.1, and you can see, 3.1's here. That should also match if you're trying to find to the root path. It should, your root port should match as well. this is basically the basics of GNS3, so you can build, your topologies, do your configurations, and, test all you want. When you're, I should say, so then when you're in here, if you go back to the GNS server page, click on the status here. Now you can see, so what I have running is this Freelab example, and that there's 23 VMs running and 1 client is connected. So if you see other ones in here, that just means other people are in there. If it has a name here and shows 0 clients connected, then they didn't disconnect or shut down properly. And basically when you're done, you can stop the devices. And again, over here shows the CPU and RAM that's being utilized for your topology. And they actually take longer to stop than they do to start for some reason. But now that they've stopped, you can save your project, and again, if you want to save your configs, you can export it to a local directory. I'm not going to save these, but that's how you do it. And then when you're done, you can just quit. And you can see when you refresh the status page, then there's nothing else connected. Forgot to close all these. And I guess the only thing is for those of you that maybe if you already have a local GNS3 copy that you want to run on the remote server. For example, this was just a basic, I think 10 or 20 router setup. If you go to like edit with Notepad, the main thing is you just need to make sure the image names match. And so if you do a search on path, just make sure that you're using an image name that's on the remote server that you configured. And then at the very bottom here, you can change the host to the gns3.freelab.local. Change the port to, was it 3080? And you can change the version to 152. And then if you save that, now if you double click on it, we're gonna cancel that. Now you see it will connect to the remote server, and then you can hit power to power it on and use your own existing labs. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you for this. And like I say, there are other features coming. This is just the first, public announcement, so to speak, of that you can use today as is. I'm working on some remote desktops, so for those of you that don't want to download GNS3 at all, you have an option to instead get on the VPN, go to remote desktop session, do everything in there. Then I'm also going to have some collaboration integration where other labs that are pre-done, like for troubleshooting, you can load those up and then troubleshoot scenarios and different things. And again, any of the routing switching tech videos I'm doing in 2017, I'm going to do in this environment so that you can also then do it. You can also then do it yourself. So, and also if you have any issues with it or any suggestions, please let me know and I can work on it. And again, just a reminder, this isn't a business or anything. This is just on my home DSL, so it's the best I can do for at least 1 month. I'm gonna have both of these servers running 24/7, so you should be able to access it anytime. The only potential gotcha is last time I had both of these running was in July of 2016, and my electric bill was like $480, and it's usually way less than 200. And I blamed the AC, but if I have a crazy high electric bill, I might have to, at least with this server, because this one has I think 4 1200 watt power supplies. So yeah, so we'll see, but I'll at least commit to having it on for a month, and then depending on if it's going to make me bankrupt or not, I might have to have set times for it. But yeah, so again, thanks for watching. Hopefully this will be useful for you, and I will see you guys in the next video.